yeah, I'm probably never going back to using anything other than these. Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to talk about some current favorite art supplies. I have literally spent the last 2 weeks doing nothing but working on a painting series. It's getting ridiculous. I have done like more painting in the last week than I have almost done in the last like 2 years. It's insane. But due to that extra time drawing and painting so frequently, I have discovered some new art supplies that I am obsessed with and rediscovered some old favorites that have been getting me through the last couple of weeks and this painting series, and so I wanted to share them with you. The first thing is so simple, but it honestly might be my favorite discovery out of all of these. This is a new one, and it is these pencil grips. They actually are technically Apple pencil grips, but they are these more bulbous ones that I have seen. They almost look like a tattoo gun grip, but I bought a pack because I have been really like gripping onto pens and stuff really tightly because I've been transferring a bunch of stuff onto paper, which we will get into as well. And so there's been a lot of pressure happening with my hand. My arm and hand was just dying, and so I decided to pick some of these up to use, yes, with my Apple Pencil, since I've been working on digital sketches for this painting series as well. But also I decided to try and put one on just normal pencils, which these particular ones are a little thicker in the like barrel hole because an Apple Pencil is just a touch thicker than a lot of different pens and pencils. So I've been like masking taping, I don't think you can see it here. There you can see. I've been putting some masking tape around the barrel of the pencil that I want to use it on, and then this thing fits over it really well and doesn't slip around. I now have these on like every pen and pencil that I've been using at this point. They're just all over my studio and I am absolutely obsessed. It's such a simple thing, but it's honestly made it so much more comfortable and realistic for me to draw for such long periods of time. The other day I literally spent like 5 hours just freehanding brick details on a house, which was not super fun for me or my neck, but my arm and hand was fine thanks to one of these grips. Since I'm actually holding these in my hand, both of the pens that these grips are on are favorites as well. The first one, I'm sure I have rambled way too much in videos, but there always seems to be someone that has not heard about this yet. But I'm just, as usual, obsessed with the Pentel Orance pencils. This one is by far my favorite. It is the 0.2mm version. They come in a bunch of different sizes, which is awesome, but the main bonus selling point for these pencils is they are automatic lead mechanism ones. Basically, you don't have to continuously be clicking them down. The lead automatically just flows from the tip here. This one's kind of messed up, so you actually don't advance the lead past the metal barrel, and then it will just do it automatically, so I can be drawing continuously. But these are just so handy because every time I use a mechanical pencil, I always feel like I'm inadvertently digging into the page because I'm trying to draw all of this stuff and I'm not remembering to click the pencil lead down. So these are just amazing, super inexpensive. They have like every lead size that you could possibly want. They are all amazing, but the 0.2, like I mentioned, I'm obsessed with the fine level of detail that you can achieve with the 0.2mm lead. So this is the particular one that I have been using for the last couple of weeks. The next thing is also a fine point pen situation, which again, one of those rubber grips. I have a whole box of these. Here's the box. These are the Pentel Slicky Needle Tip Liquid Gel Roller Pens. So these are an ultra fine 0.25mm gel pen, basically. These particular ones are purple, which the color doesn't really matter to me, but the entire reason that I've been obsessed with these for the last couple of weeks is I've been doing so much transferring of digital drawings onto watercolor paper with transfer paper, and generally it's super useful to transfer drawings using a ballpoint pen because you can essentially press to your heart's content and it will just generally transfer a lot smoother because you don't have to worry about leads breaking or anything like that. that, but what I was finding is that normal ballpoint pens, the tip was just way too thick for the drawings that I was transferring for the detail in them, so I went trying to find a finer tip pen, and that is when I came across these bad boys. And the purple was literally just the cheapest color, but it actually works out really well because you can see when you're transferring. I personally, the sketches that I was using, they're like a black gray line art digitally, and so because it is purple ink, you can actually see where the pen, like what you've basically transferred, because the ink is a different color. So I do generally use a pen in a different color than what the line art is. It's normally like a blue or, you know, something basic. I wasn't particular about the color, but the purple was mostly because it was literally the cheapest version, and I was basically planning on wrecking all of them. Actually, I have used this for a few hours now, and I've really been digging the transfer paper and sketch into the page using this, and it's still working fine. So I'm actually not wrecking them that much, but I also didn't really care about the pen in particular. It was more just a tool for me, but I've been really enjoying using these. They're working great for what I want them for. Yeah, just really happy with these. Not very exciting, but a very useful tool that I've been using. Also in the pen and pencil department are these. These are the Mars Lumograph black pencils, and basically, I was looking at different materials to possibly outline this painting series that I'm working on, and I wasn't super sold on the idea of outlining them in like fine liners. I thought that might be a bit too harsh, so I was exploring some other options. I actually bought the, what is it? I bought some of these very expensive Blackwing matte, the black, basically Palomino Blackwing pencils. They are the softest lead, so they are the darkest, which I do like these still. I am kind of really annoyingly obsessed with the Blackwing pencils. I normally use the 602s, which are the hardest lead, and this is the softest, so I've got the range there now, but this was very graphite looking still, like it's super shiny. And when I was like researching different pens, I honestly have no clue why these came up as like a recommended thing. It was probably because I was looking at those. These just sounded very interesting. The premise for these is they have extra carbon in them, so they are extra black. And boy, are they. I originally bought this set, which has an 8B, 7B, 6B, 4B, 2B, and HB variety in here. If I can open it there and have them not all spill out. So here's what they look like in the set. You can see I've sharpened the 8B one quite a lot there, but you know, pretty standard looking pencils. But I tested these out, and the 8B one, well actually all of them, but I was looking for something really black. So the 8B one for me was the one that really stood out. They're just very nice matte black pencils. They're not quite a colored pencil. They're sort of like on the edge between a graphite pencil and a colored pencil. So they're just a really interesting tool, and I was so interested and obsessed with what the 8B looked like. I actually bought an entire box of them, which is also really handy that you can buy the individual ones. And so here's the one that I have been currently using. Gone through quite a bit of it, but yeah, I was just really impressed with these pencils. They are much cheaper than the Blackwing ones, so that is nice. And yeah, I think they're just a really unique pencil that I can't say I've ever found anything else like this, or at least I've personally never used anything quite like this. Yeah, I've been experimenting, outlining various I actually have one. Do I want to show it? Might as well, since I'm like blubbering on about it, and also I've teased it enough on like Instagram and stuff that it's probably not too much of a spoiler at this point. But this is the only one that I've finished in 2 weeks. I've been like working on this entire painting series. I've been like working on multiple ones at the same time, so I haven't been quite doing them in order, but this is the one that is like 100% done. And so like basically everything I'm talking about in this video is used on this painting. So you can see like the crazy detail. This was not what I wrecked my neck and nearly my arm on brickwise. No, this is another one that I did actually wreck my arm on because I did this without my nice comfy pencil grips. This is just generally probably like a good example of the level of fine detail and what I've been using all of these supplies for. So this one does have that black Mars pencil outline. I like that it's not super harsh. The entire thing is outlined with that, so it does define things a little more than it just sort of being my under sketch pencil. It's not super stark like a multi-liner would be. So there's a preview of things to come, and I just have 8 more to finish. The last thing that is sort of pencil related is my new favorite pencil sharpener. I did just really recently show this in a haul video, I believe is what video this was featured in, but it is an AFMAT long point electric pencil sharpener of a particular model that I absolutely do not remember, but it is a long point pencil sharpener. It is USB powered, like it is like battery operated, but it is USB charged, so that is super handy that it doesn't have to be continuously plugged in. But that is what is sharpening my pencils to be that extensively nice fine point that you can see here. And yeah, it's just really easy. I got so used to like going at pencils with a knife that it's nice to just have this sitting on my desk, and when I need to resharpen something, which I have been having to resharpen this quite frequently since I've been outlining with it, I just stick it in the top, let it do its thing, pull it out, and I'm ready to continue drawing. So I've been really obsessed with this, and I've been getting a lot of use out of it the last week or so. These are something that I've been continuously obsessed with, and I know I've mentioned them in a video, but they have not come up in possibly years in a video, despite them being one of my all-time favorite supplies. And they are these Artograph, they're called light pad pucks. And what these were originally designed for, they are these rubber puck things that stack into each other, so they're nice and sleek and are easily stored. But they're like rubber support pucks that originally are designed for elevating a light box, but what I use these for all of the time, and I honestly use them, like I've been using them a ton in the last week, but I use these things all of the time as like the most portable easel imaginable. What I personally do, and I'm not sure how else you would use these, but here's like an over explanation of what these are. I basically just sit these on my desk like that and then prop up whatever I'm working on, which is normally on a masonite board, so it's a nice steady surface, and that puts the piece that you're working on an incline, which is really handy when it's, you know, quite a large piece and you can't really see the top. It of course helps with any distortion you might be dealing with due to the viewing angle of your piece, but it's not like a super dramatic angle. Obviously you can really move these around on the board to change the angle up, but yeah, these are so handy, and of course they really do not take up any amount of space in a studio or on a desk. I actually just bought more of these, which I'm not entirely sure if they even really make these anymore, because the ones that I ordered were kind of like a random seller situation, so it looks like these are getting harder to find, and I'm not entirely sure if anyone else makes something like this. But if you know of something like this, please like leave it in the comments, because I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in something like this, and I know I definitely am, although I did specifically look at getting more of these because it would be really nice and handy if I could actually stack more of them, like have 3 stacked on either side instead of just a 2 stack. Yeah, one of my all-time favorite things that I'm not actually sure if I've ever seen anyone else talk about these. But if you can find these anywhere or something like this, highly recommend as like a studio essential. The other thing I actually wanted to talk about is the paper that this entire series is being painted on. I was like, what are we doing with this paper? We're painting on this paper. That's how the week is going. But you can probably tell when I was handling this just how not flimsy it is, and that is because these are cut sheets. I have a blank one here. I have cut all of these down to size at this point, which this is a 12 by 18 sheet, but this is Arch's 600 GSM 300 pound cold pressed paper, I'm assuming in natural white or something, I will definitely link below and like mention exactly what this paper is. Basically, it's like the most expensive paper you could possibly buy. But I wanted to use something very nice for this series, so I sprung for the super thick stuff. So this is essentially like 2 pieces of normal cold pressed paper. It's like I mentioned, 600 GSM, which generally pretty typical watercolor paper would be 300, so basically double, which is why it's like almost to the level of artboard. This stuff is so thick. It's atrociously expensive. I did get a slight deal on it because I had to buy so much of it because I could only get 2 sheets out of each. They come in like 22 by 30 inch full sheets. I don't actually, they might actually have this in the Arches like blocks, like watercolor blocks and stuff. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it generally is just more economical to buy things in sheets, other than the chances of it coming in the size that I need would probably be pretty slim anyway. So I bought sheets of it. It was like, normally I think they're like 30 Canadian dollars here, and I got them for like 25-ish or so, which having to cut $25 a sheet watercolor paper down to size is an experience. And I did want to specifically mention this because I kind of have infamously not been the biggest Arches fan in the past, but this stuff, for whatever reason, the whole reason I actually decided to buy this is because it was pretty much the only 600-pound GSM paper I could get easily around here without like having to order it in, and I was on like a tight schedule. I wanted to start this painting series finally, so that is why I kind of like sucked it up and decided to get the Arches stuff. But I have been really enjoying this, and the general, I guess, complaints that I guess you could say that I have with Arches watercolor paper have not really been present with this. Normally I say it's like too rough, but this stuff, I don't know if it's because it is the thicker version or it's just generally the pieces that I've been doing on it. It's been holding up beautifully. I have really been rough on it in certain areas, and there has been no wear and tear. You can see with this one, there is almost no warping, despite it being like heavily watercolored in the vast majority of the sort of central zone. Probably it's warping the most because I did like so much wear and tear on the face is probably where it's like buckling the most, but really it is a pretty flat piece of paper considering the level of water and paint that I have put on this thing. So yeah, I guess I'm slowly turning to the dark side of Arches watercolor paper, which I'm sure a large majority of you will be happy about, considering every time I mention not liking it, somebody comes for me in the comment section. I have absolutely no segue for this next item, so we're just going to talk about it, but it is this Van Gogh paint color. It is in the color Naples Yellow Red, and I actually have no clue why I have this paint. It is a completely one-off one in my collection. The closest thing that I can think of is that I have a Naples Yellow Red color from another brand that I can't remember, and essentially if you know generally what Naples Yellow looks like, add some red to it, and that is this color, which is generally what I would be doing for possibly different skin tones anyway. Naples Yellow is just really yellow, and so a lot of the time you sort of want to like pull it back to a little more peachy color for light-skinned portraits. It's just generally a color that you would be using a lot for lighter skin, and so this I've been just blowing through like crazy because I've been using this as almost like a base and then tinting it and like darkening it up and stuff, but keeping that nice sort of base fleshy light tone. And so I had to mention this because I don't actually think I've ever talked about this in a video, and it is this random one-off paint in my main big palette that I'm constantly using. I don't believe these tubes are actually that expensive either, and this is actually like a semi more unique color. Like most of my main custom watercolor palette is Daniel Smith paints, which I would assume that there is not a Naples Yellow Red shade in that. There's definitely a Naples Yellow because I have it because my swatch sheet is right there, but presumably if there is a Naples Yellow's Red shade, I probably would have bought it and put it in my palette considering how many portraits I do. So that is a more unique color. If you're doing portraits a lot, this might be like a nice hack. It's not like you can't mix this on your own, but obviously it is nice to have that color already there if it's one that you're using a lot, and then you can focus on the really subtle adjustments and the values opposed to creating that perfect peachy-ish shade all of the time. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about were watercolor brushes, because surprisingly I have actually painted quite a few in this series now, and I've basically been sticking to the same 4 brushes, which I'm not sure if that people would think that's a lot or not that much, considering the variety of sizes and details in the pieces that I've been working on, but I've literally been sticking to 4. The first 2 are actually the same brush, just in different sizes, and it is these Paulina bright watercolor brushes, which are a more recent addition, so I have been sort of talking about them more frequently, but the ones that I've been using are in size 0 and size 2, so it's kind of like a step between them. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3. Yep. 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so like the smallest one and then not the next one, but the next one after that size-wise. So these I have been using to put down larger areas of color, and these ones I really like, and I know I've talked about this, so I don't want to go too much into it, but they are a quill-like brush, but they are much more skinnier, basically. They're a skinnier brush, so they keep their point really, really well, and I feel like you get a lot of precision with these, whereas sometimes you might need to be focusing a little more with using a normal quill brush. Where is one of those? So if you look at, this is a size 2 normal quill versus the size 2 Paulina bright one, so you can see the hairs are a very different shape. The sort of normal quill is a much more bulbous shape, and this is very skinny and straight. And these are also synthetic, so they pick up and blend the color really, really nicely as well. So I've been using those a lot. Actually, everything I believe that I've been using is synthetic. These look synthetic. If they're not synthetic, it's going to be a shock to me. The next one is actually sort of a more one-off random brush in my collection, but it is the Jackson's Arctica Terre White Synthetic. Hopefully I said that right, but essentially it's almost like a Jackson's own brand white synthetic brush, which is no longer white in the bristles because I've been using it a lot. This is really just a nice synthetic brush. I'm not entirely sure why I grabbed this one out of my brush collection when I was starting these paintings off, but I obviously just like the size. This is a size 4, and the point looked nice, and I was going for something synthetic so that I could keep the precision and control a lot. Not that you can't with natural brushes, but synthetic brushes just have a different texture to them. I'm sure if you have like a collection of brushes with synthetic and natural hairs, you know just the feel of it. I'm not entirely sure how to explain that adequately, but with synthetic brushes, they really are just, they're a little stiffer, so they bounce back a little easier, and you can really keep that precise control, I feel, a little easier. Sometimes they don't have as much precision as the natural hair variety, but their sort of a baseline of control is a lot more tight than a natural brush, or at least some natural brushes. I'm not actually sure if I even have any more of these. Obviously, sometime I placed a Jackson's order, I picked up some of their brushes to try out as well, and I'm very happy that I did because I've been really enjoying using this brush. And the last one is actually a pretty new addition to my collection. I literally picked it up at Curry's when I bought the watercolor paper, but it is see-through and I cannot see what this thing is called. It is a Princeton Glacier brush, which again is also synthetic, and I'm pretty sure this is branded as a watercolor brush, but it is pretty similar in texture to the Jackson's one. It has maybe a bit more of a softer synthetic bristle, but they're pretty cool looking brushes. They have this translucent handle, and the hairs themselves are like a naturalish brown color that fades to white. If anybody cares about the aesthetics of brushes, again, this has just been keeping its point really nicely. I have been doing a decent amount of scrubbing with this. I try not to. I have like specific scrub brushes where I kind of don't care if the hairs get splayed, if I need to pull up some color if I've put too much down, or I just want to blend something in. There are specific like blending brushes for that I use, but occasionally I can't be bothered to switch out. So both of these have been doing like a little bit of scrubbing, which they've been holding up really well for. The hairs at the very tip on this, just looking at it, I'm not sure if you will be able to see this because it's pretty minute detail wise. They're a little bent at the very tip, but I haven't noticed that until right this second, so it's been holding up really well, and you can really keep its nice fine point when you are using this one as well. And that is what I freehanded all of those extensively small brick details on this house with. So you can tell from that just how well it can keep its point. And yeah, those are all of the art supplies that I've been loving at the moment and using literally every single day since I've been working on this painting series. I've been using other things like, of course, my main watercolor palette, but of course it's like my custom one, so it's like a constant favorite, so I feel like that's not like a shocking revelation to anybody that I'm using that. But those were just more of the new and specific discoveries that hopefully you found interesting. I have no idea. People, I feel like, always are interested in hearing about art supplies, but I feel like that wasn't like the most earth-shattering collection of supplies, but they are super handy, so hopefully this video helped you out and you found it interesting in some way in that regard. I of course would love to know if any of you have made a recent art supply discovery, whether that is a new favorite or a rediscovery. I always love hearing about art supplies, and I always love your recommendations because you guys seriously give some amazing ones, and half of like the supplies that I'm constantly using now have been recommended through the comment section on my channel. So thank you all for your continuously great recommendations. But I really need to go back to working on this painting series, so I'm gonna end this video here. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.